Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us on this World Monday Careers panel on March 18th, 2022. Super excited to welcome our three awesome speakers today. And I'll let you guys introduce yourselves a little more. Just for myself, my name's Sharon. I'm currently a Master's of Global Affairs candidate at the University of Toronto, specializing in innovation and environmental studies. And that's a little bit about me. Alia, if you want to kick it off, and then Helena and Nathaniel.
Hi, my name is Alia. I currently live in Washington, D.C., where I work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee as the Chief of Staff for Campaigns and Political, helping Democratic candidates across the United States get elected to Congress. My experience for Model UN comes from my time in college. I graduated College of Charleston in 2019. I was involved in Model UN for all 4 years that I was involved in school, and it definitely helped shape my path in my career, and is one of the most fond things that I remember about my time in school.
Hi.
Thanks for that, Alia. Oh, yeah, Helena, all you.
Hi, my name is Helena. I'm in my first year of law school at Lincoln Alexander in Toronto, Ontario. I graduated from the University of Waterloo just last year. I studied legal studies and health studies. I really enjoyed my time there, and that's when I first got involved with Model UN. I did it for, I think, 3 out of the 4 years. I was first a delegate, and then I ended up being part of the team. I was the vice president for a year. And then through that opportunity, I ended up volunteering at a monastery, Model UN, in New York. So I got to go there for a week right before COVID, and I went again this year. So it was really fun seeing that. Model UN has provided me with a lot of transferable skills that I used to get jobs, and also that I'm currently using. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time there, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, thanks for that. And in general, I think all of us have so much Model UN experience from around the world, and I'm honestly so excited to hear from all of you. And Nathaniel.
Yes, hi everybody. My name's Nathaniel, and I currently live in London in the UK. I'm currently working at the UK Department for International Trade as a policy advisor on trade and services negotiations. I graduated from the University of Southampton in 2018, and I was quite active on the UK Model UN circuit, and also did a few international conferences as well. And yeah, my Model UN sort of experience really crafted sort of my career and who I am today. And yeah, really pleased to be here and talking to you guys.
Awesome, thank you for that. So first question, you guys probably will hear about this all the time, but out of Model UN, what is your favorite committee, and what was your worst committee and why? And then we'll get into the more career related questions.
Do you want me to
Any of y'all can start, yeah.
I can go first. Okay, cool. So my favorite committee was, I think, definitely the emergency special sessions, because so that was actually the first ever committee that I chaired, and the reason it was so fun is because you can just within the session you can throw curveballs in, and you can it's as if you're working towards a breaking news cycle, and it's super fun. And you can really creative with the discussion in those sessions, and they're super rare at the UN in New York in real life as well. So it really does feel like you're being, I don't know, you're sort of involved and really in the thick of things, in the throes of things when you're in that committee. So that's definitely my favorite one.
I have to agree with Nathaniel. I think that from my experience, I was always a delegate that tried to snatch away all the crisis committees from the rest of my team, because they were absolutely my favorite. All of the special committees and the crisis committees were always my favorite. It was the first committee I did as a Model UN delegate, and it was something that just stuck with me. And in that same vein, I have to say one of my least favorite committees, that it was a random health committee that I was on. It was a very random conference I participated in, and it was a very big committee, and it was a great experience, just like all of my Model UN experiences have been. But I think for me, just like as Anthony was saying, it's so much nicer to be able to kind of really be in like the thick of it and like feel like it's like a real world thing that's happening. And also the smaller groups are really kind of nice to work with, and you feel a lot like more collaborative, I think, with your fellow delegates.
I'm gonna have to hop on the bandwagon and say the crisis committees are my favorite. It was also my first, but I got to be a part of the crisis committee as a delegate and then also be an exec. And it was just fun throwing those curveballs out of nowhere. And like, you kind of have fun with it, especially towards the end of the conference. It gets a little, at least in my experience, was a little bit more sillier. I think for the most part, I've enjoyed a lot of the committees, but one thing that I did in my undergrad that I maybe would say is my least favorite was the G20 Summit. It was just a little bit, in my opinion, when I went, it was a little dry, so it wasn't as exciting. So I think that would be my least favorite.
I think I forgot to mention my least favorite. I'm thinking about it. It was a super obscure one that I did at MUN. And it was, I can't remember the exact name, but it was like International Tennis Federation, where I represented Switzerland, and we had to like, we had to talk about like tennis rules. So there was lots about like doping and things. And then we had to like bid to host like an international tennis tournament for one of our cities. It was really interesting, but I'm not really a tennis fan, so didn't really enjoy that one. But I think if you really like tennis and really like sport, probably would have been a good one.
Yeah, I'll definitely hop on that crisis bandwagon. Participating in crisis is so fun, but when you're organizing it, it's just a whole other nightmare. Oh my gosh. Alia, did you have Midnight Crisis back during NISMON?
Yes, yeah, we did Midnight Crisis when Sharon, the year that I met you at NISBA, we did a Midnight Crisis, and that was my first time actually chairing such a large conference, and it was a really wild experience. And like me and my partner, we definitely tried to make it as complicated as possible and like kept all of our delegates on their toes as much as we could. And it was definitely a really fun experience. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like there's no rules and you can kind of just like do what you want and throw what you will at them and just see how they react, which is like the best part of Model UN.
Yeah, for sure. So now we're going to pivot just a little bit, getting more into like your education and whatnot. So if you started Model UN in high school, if you could just describe a little bit how it influenced your university decisions. And if you started in university, how do you think it influenced your recruiting process as soon as you graduated and you're looking for a real adult job that isn't, unfortunately, being a secretary general for a conference?
I can start here. So I unfortunately wasn't able to do Model UN when I was in high school. It wasn't a organization that we had at my school, but like we did have a really small kind of like it was starting in the first like year or two, like in like the year or two before I joined my university. So it was a really like new program, and it was something that like I really enjoyed because we had a really small conference on my campus, which is my very first Model UN experience. And then after that, I was able to like join the organization and join the club and kind of help them build and like recruit and like kind of like help kind of get our team to different conferences around our region and around the country. So it was really exciting for me in that sense, because I think that I was really able to kind of show like the people of our campus who like didn't really realize how fun Model UN really can be and how helpful it can be for like career prep and like just like getting some basic skills, right? We were able to kind of like advertise that and really kind of gain traction on my campus for our Model UN club. And as far as like how it shaped my career, I don't currently work in international politics, but I will say that like the skills that you get from Model UN, like thinking on your feet and just being being available at any given point to kind of just like react and like think really critically about what's going on, I think has definitely played like a huge part in like my ability to be a good campaign staffer and to kind of continue to think on my feet as like when we get closer to elections and things like that. The election is basically just another crisis committee, honestly. So it really has prepared me like really well to be able to work in politics.
Quite the comparison with working on an election team and a crisis committee.
Honestly, it feels the same sometimes.
Helena, sorry for cutting you off.
No, I was just gonna say, similar to Alia, in my high school, we didn't have a Model UN. I don't think it was as popular, at least in maybe Canada or Toronto. Like it wasn't a popular club to have on at school. But I joined, I think it was towards the end of my first year in undergrad, and I was in science originally, and I had nothing to do with like Model UN or public speaking or anything like that. And then I knew that I was not really loving science. So when I joined Model UN, I like realized that I liked the topics. I felt more excited to be in that environment. So I was getting more excited, and then I started looking into like legal studies at my school, and it kind of intrigued me. There's a lot of courses that kind of overlap with political science and legal studies. So I was like, okay, this just seems like a route that I want to take. And then through Model UN, I got involved in other similar debating clubs like undergraduate mock trials and other things like that. And it wasn't exactly the knowledge that I learned in Model UN that helped me with work and deciding to pursue law. It was more like similar to Leah, like more of the transferable skills. For me, a big one was public speaking and also thinking fast on your feet. I never really had to public speak in science because you're not really doing any of that. But with Model UN, it kind of just helped me just, you know, have the courage to just talk and just say it in front of everyone and just, stick to your points. So I think that with Model UN, it just mainly helped me understand that this is a kind of an environment that I would like to be in. So that's kind of how it helped me with my skills and how I'm pursuing my career. I don't have a job yet, but hopefully it also helps me with my job. But yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. You and I are definitely in the same boat. I started as a medical science student, absolutely hated it, and added political science because of Model UN. And then I'm in a Master of Global Affairs program now because I thought the UN was interesting. Do I regret the program? That's other tea.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so my high school didn't have Model UN Society, but I was super interested in like getting involved in like debating and stuff. So I joined the debating society, but it just felt like there was something missing. And then joining university, I did international relations. So that was just like it was like a really easy like trip into Model UN Society. And yeah, I think like from the perspective of like my career,
Did he freeze for y'all? Because he froze for me. Okay. I'll let him know.
like so many interesting people from all over the world, and that's a skill that I think is really important when you're starting your career.
You cut off for the last about minute there. You just like froze.
Oh no! What did you hear up to?
That's some amazing people. We got that
Yes.
gist.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, I was saying two main things that I really learned from MUN, I think, was teamwork, because you have to like you have to like collaborate and you have to make alliances, and that's definitely something that in my career now, like, is really important. And then the second thing, I think, communicating internationally, because at conferences you meet people from all over the world with really different negotiating styles that you might not come across in like your day-to-day like life when you're studying. So that was also something that was like a huge skill that I learned from Model UN that I use in my career today.
Awesome. Yeah. Just to kind of build on the kind of employable, concrete, transferable skills aspect a little bit more. A lot of people in Model UN struggle to figure out how to write Model UN on your resume in a way that people who don't do Model UN are better to understand like why this extracurricular is something that is genuinely useful and beneficial for students especially. So I guess, do you guys have any advice on how to concretely define your accomplishments in Model UN in, I guess, like a written format? Yeah, I know this is a little oddly specific, but any tips? I think this would be appreciated.
No worries. I think that for me, as someone whose career is like slightly different from like, not necessarily international affairs or anything like that anymore, I will say that, I think focusing on the transferable skills is like the most important aspect of it. Kind of like, I think obviously just as with anything, it depends on what kind of like job you're applying for and what things that they value. But I think that it is really important to highlight those transferable skills that are very universal, like public speaking, critical thinking, and also like if it's something that is more of like a research kind of position or something like that, talking about like all of the work that goes into preparing for the conferences, I think it's a big deal as well, because it's not just something that we do like over one weekend. It is something that takes like weeks of prep, right? Like to make sure that like you know what you're going into and you kind of understand your country's policies and those kinds of things. So there's a lot of prep work that goes into it, which I think often gets overshadowed by everything else, but definitely focusing on the transferable skills, I think is the most important.
Yeah, I could add to that. So the skills that mainly helped me when looking for a job was the team working. When you're working on those resolutions, you're working with other people. Depending on how big the committee, it could be a lot of people. Advocacy is also a big transferable skill. It helped me with like if you wanted to go towards like the social justice route, if you're looking for like nonprofit jobs, advocacy is a really good skill. And similar to what Alia said with like just public speaking, writing, and research. Research is a really big one. I know for if you're going to undergrad, if you're going to university, there's a lot of research assistant positions, a lot of different programs. There's always research within it. So you can use it no matter what route you choose. If you end up going into science, research is still really useful. So yeah, I think those are a couple that stands out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that research point. Like, something that I think is overlooked sometimes is the actual content that you're working on. Like, it can be really specific, like global geopolitical policy, and actually like showing that you've been involved in Model UN and you've done things around like these different sort of committees shows like a real understanding towards like that geopolitical activity that maybe other applicants wouldn't have. And that's definitely something that I think employers look for when they're looking for like competent applicants.
Just to build on what Nathaniel said about having a regional specialization in Model UN and transferring it to a job, that's exactly what happened with my internship for the summer. I previously in Model UN had a lot of experience with ASEAN, so Association of Southeast Asian Nations, so I'm relatively well versed, and based off a couple background guides and position papers I wrote for that, I'm now part of the Asia Pacific team at Global Affairs Canada, which is essentially like the foreign relations department of Canada for those of you unfamiliar with Canada. Okay, awesome. Thank you for those insights, guys. So moving on, again, this is just about interviewing. Some of our students are concerned that in this digital age, there are far more opportunities within humanities. So one of their questions was, how do you see skills in Model UN applying to more software or tech sector startup-based organizations? So again, back to the transferable skill thing, there's some critical thinking involved, but students were looking more for, as a Model UN student, you do research, but how can they, on their university application, say they're applying to comp sci, how would they apply that?
I actually feel pretty strongly about involving folks who are passionate about the sciences and our STEM students, involving them in, because I think that there's so many skills like Helena was mentioning earlier on, that like you might not necessarily like have the ability to practice these kinds of things in your day-to-day, as far as like your own personal degree. Like you might not present your research as frequently as like folks in the humanities who study the humanities do, or like you might not be as well versed in public speaking, or even like have an understanding of geopolitical affairs in the way that students who don't study the STEMs may do. But at the same time, I think that it always makes you a more well-rounded and more exciting applicant when you can show that you don't have one lane and you don't have one specific niche, and that you're able to kind of bounce between different things and learn about other things that are outside of your lane and expand your own horizons. I think that makes everyone a more successful applicant, no matter what your career path is and kind of what your end goal is. I think there's no career path that Model UN honestly can't be helpful for, and the skills that you gain are honestly transferable wherever you go.
I think for me, it's so interesting, like the age of information that we live in has seen like humanities and science really intertwine. Like take COVID-19, for example, like you have scientists working in labs on really specific science, virology, and then you have all of this geopolitical fallout and misinformation online. And I think it's really important that if you're part of you know, you're a science professional, that you're able to like respond to those geopolitical issues. And there's so much misinformation out there in terms of like science, which seeps into like geopolitical thinking. And I think Model UN would really help like bridge the gap between those two things.
That's such a good point, especially about COVID.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to like, I agree with both what Nathaniel and Elia said, but I do want to hone in on the fact that having a diverse like resume is really, really crucial. I know for law school, like getting into law school, they don't want to just see that you have a bunch of legal experience. Like the fact that I had some science experience or like volunteered with organizations that has nothing to do with law or Model UN or anything like that, they like that. They don't want you to just have the same exact experience. And also a lot of the times like the the job description that you may be seeing may not have the exact skills that you gain from Model UN, but maybe they'll see your resume and realize, actually, I could use that skill in this area. So that could be of an advantage for you. So I wouldn't be so like afraid that if you're a STEM student, that Model UN is too irrelevant or something, but because it could be used in a different way. And like we've all mentioned, like a lot of the skills are transferable for any field. So you should be good regardless.
Awesome, thank you. So just to pivot into a little bit about your specific careers. So if you could just, I guess, walk us through how you got to, I guess, where you are today. So for us students, how and what extracurriculars were you involved in before? And then for those of you who are working full time, I guess, what happened after you graduated and and what was the recruiting process like? Some of those like juicy details.
I can go first, Sharon, if that's helpful. Cool. So for me, I graduated 2018, and then I had like quite a long period of time where I was like looking for jobs and internships, and I landed this internship at the UK rep to the EU in Brussels, which was super exciting because it was what I wanted to do, and it was over like the Brexit period, so there was like really lots of like cool work around like Brexit and stuff. And I spent, you know, so long just like in coffee shops writing applications, and when I got this one, I was so happy, and I used Model UN on like my resume because part of it was about like communicating internationally, and I'd done some Model UN conferences like abroad and things, and in Holland and in Belgium as well. So like it showed that like I had capability to like communicate internationally, which is what they were looking for. And at the interview, I made sure that I mentioned that point. So I think that really like worked well for me for sort of that internship. And then after that internship, I actually joined the UK Civil Service like graduate scheme, and I did 3 different postings before I ended up where I am now, which is in the Department for International Trade. So it was sort of like getting that one internship really set the ball rolling for me and opened up new opportunities, and I was able to like go from that into my into like some other postings now into the department that I'm in now. So yeah, if you sort of look at it as like a snowball effect, it really was Model UN that like got the ball rolling for me.
Love to see it. Like we need more Model UN success stories, honestly.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit here. So, you know, I definitely, when I was a student, focused a lot of my studies on international affairs and on political science and things like that. And I was more focused on like geopolitical stuff, and I wasn't focused at all on American politics until, you know, as most Americans will tell you, that after the 2016 election, we all kind of like were a little bit shocked and alarmed at the state of our country, and focused a little bit more on kind of what's going on inside our house. So to speak. And so I think that kind of like opened my eyes a little bit more to like, you know, what like how I can be more helpful and active in like my own immediate community and like the things that I could see around me that needed to change. And so I got involved in local politics and local elections when I was still a student. I had the opportunity to get an internship working on some local campaigns for the 2018 election cycle. And so that kind of really opened my eyes to like how how impactful it can really be to be involved in something that is as like direct as an election, and kind of like, you know, how those things can cause like a really immediate ripple effect throughout the community, right? And so that kind of just really opened my eyes to like election work and electoral politics generally. And so after I graduated in 2019, it was like about the time in which folks were gearing up for the 2020 presidential election here in America. And so I had the opportunity to you know, work on Kamala Harris's presidential campaign when she was back in the day when she was running for president. And so that similar to how Nathaniel was speaking, like that opportunity kind of just like opened the door for like everything else for me since then. You know, like I just was able to meet so many different people on that campaign, and campaigns are one of those things that like they attract really, really awesome talent and a lot of people from like various backgrounds and community leaders and all types of people. So it is really, really awesome to like be able to work closely with like lots of different people with different backgrounds and things like that, and to learn from their experience and all that good stuff. So, and that's kind of how I got where I got.
Yeah, so for me, throughout my undergrad, I was involved again, like with a lot of different types of clubs. So some were health focused, some were, well, one of them was Model UN. And then I was also really involved in just like random school spirit clubs. And at first, I didn't really see the value of Model UN. Like I enjoyed being a delegate and like just meeting up with people and like making friends within that Model UN environment. But slowly, I started to realize that was kind of the stepping stone for me to want to get involved in making a difference within my community. Just hearing about like just being in those conferences and seeing us like all talk about resolutions, and I was like, okay, like at least I can try to put in real action. So I started to get involved within like with volunteering with the more community organizations. So I helped with like this group called Sexual Assault Support Center, and I was being a court supporter. So I got to use my legal studies background, but it also helped people in my community. And then it kind of got me more involved into seeking up the community in a bigger scale. So I joined an organization that helps homeless women get off the streets and then get a career as well through this like year-long program. And it just made me want to get involved in more nonprofit and make actual difference in people's lives. So whenever I go to these MUN conferences today, like I went to one 2 weeks ago, it was nice to see all the kids talk about how they want to make difference, and they're already like putting in real work and making actual differences where I wasn't doing that at that age. So I'm glad that I'm doing it now, but I would have liked to do that. I would have liked to start like maybe when I was younger, but yeah, I think Model UN is just a great stepping stone to actually helping your community. One thing is to like talk about it, but then to actually do it is another. So yeah.
Definitely glad to hear we have hope for the youth of this generation. With Model UN, with myself as well, like it was a little bit more direct for me because it was a really big point on my resume and all of my applications, to be honest. I've been really lucky to have the privilege to chair a few conferences in different countries. And through those experiences, I think that's what got me into MUN, honestly, because admissions had seen that I had a real genuine interest in improving the state of the world and contributing. And what I think is most important, at least through my studies, is really the focus of sustainability and climate change. I mean, as all of you guys know, climate change is one of the biggest, if not the biggest problem we're going to face in the 21st century. And Model UN really helped me, I guess, prioritize these kind of concerns and see where I could concretely give back to the community. And I think that's what's really the pattern I'm noticing between all four of us, and frankly, like other people I've had on this panel series as well. Everyone genuinely cares about improving the world. And that's just something we really, really need. And it's so good to see, you know, people our age stepping up. We're going to move into our last question for today. And that is, what advice do you have to give yourself as a student, whether that be high school or university, and, you know, bring it back full circle to your career? Yeah, feel free to take a few minutes just to think on that. I know it's a pretty big picture question.
Yeah, deep question. I think like I was just thinking about it sort of circles back to like my answer to the last question actually, and I was saying how like it took me like months to source an internship, and I think what I would definitely say is like don't like give up if that makes sense. I guess it's pretty cheesy, but like I did have like lots of setbacks before I got like my first internship and then my sort of career and stuff. So I definitely would say like don't sort of give up, and also just like give it 100%. Because when I joined at university, the first like MUN meeting that I went to, I was really like sort of nervous and scared, and I sort of skipped the next few because there was all of these like final year students there that were like really like out there and outgoing, and it sort of put me off a little bit. And I would say to myself, like, just go there, go to the second meeting, because it took me a while to like get back into it, and then once I did, I absolutely loved it. So that was sort of like a waste of time really that I had, like umming and ahhing about like whether I should go back. So I guess, yeah, just like take up every opportunity and don't give up is what I'd say.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to Nathaniel's. I would say take every opportunity. That's kind of the mindset I had during my undergrad. I wanted to be involved in so many things just so I had an idea of what I liked. And when you're young and you're a student, you do have access to a lot of different people. Like if you're starting undergrad and you're going to university, you have your professors and other students who can teach you and show you a lot. But one big thing I would say is make your own opportunity if you don't see it available to you. A lot of the students who I met a couple weeks ago when I was at the conference, they were starting their own organizations within their community. And I would have never thought of doing that at that age, but it's not as, depending on what you want to do, it's not as difficult. You just need to be passionate about what you're worried about or what you're thinking about, and just, try to put in the actual work. It's easier said than done, but if you're really passionate about it, you'll put in the work and you can make actual change. So I would just say, like, keep in mind, if there's no space for you, make that space yourself. But
Yeah, I think I really have to just hop onto what Helena was saying, because I agree completely that a lot, my university was one of the ones that, like, we didn't have a really strong Model UN program when I was in college, and that was something that we were really trying to develop and things like that. But I think that, like in hindsight, we hit so many roadblocks along the way, which of course you do, but there were moments in which I definitely feel like if I had just kind of like pushed really hard, or like taken done what I needed to do in order to go to a conference or whatever else, like I think that we would have been a lot more involved as a club and as an organization, instead of like in a lot more conferences throughout the country instead of the regional ones that we did when I was at school, because we were just new and things like that, and I think we didn't push ourselves in the way that I really wish that we did back when I was still in school. So I definitely think like just touching on what everybody was saying, to push yourself, make sure that if it's something that you want, you try really, really hard to make it happen, because if you want it, honestly, like the work will not feel like such hard work, I think.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, I really wish, like, when I was doing Model UN, like, not to be so stressed about the fact that I'm going to miss 2 days of school over going to a conference, because it's really worth the experience, honestly. And additionally, with Model UN, there's so many social opportunities that are available, and everyone needs to take advantage of those. Those are better than any networking opportunity you can find on LinkedIn, better than any coffee chat you have. Like, the people you meet in Model UN are all so like-minded, even if they're not in the same program. Everyone just really wants to make an impact, and meeting those people, they become lifelong friends. You'll keep in touch with them forever. And as you know, when I was in high school and undergrad as well, I was really shy, so I skipped a lot of the socials. And in retrospect, I really wish I gave more of my social energy into networking and learning from more people. And that being said, that wraps up our panel today. Really, really appreciate all of the different insights you guys gave, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was nice being here.